Hey everyone, and welcome to our video on causation. This is something that is part of understanding evidence because frequently we're very interested in this question of, well, what did a policy cause in a policy analysis class? But in this class, we're going to think more about what caused a policy to happen, right? So we'll get into both with this realm of evidence. I mean, some of what causes a policy to happen is hopefully what we expect the policy to cause down the road. But note that causation in general, regardless of what we're talking about with it being from policy to results or from situations into policy, it is tricky to figure out. So causation, part of the reason it's tricky is it cannot directly be observed. I remember reading the philosopher David Hume. He has these very skeptical arguments about causation that says we only ever observe two things sort of in conjunction. We can't directly observe, like if I drop something, we don't see gravity actually pull it down. We just observe the correlation between me dropping something and it's falling, which means there's some sort of theoretical model. And in the case of gravity, it's a very strong theoretical model, right? Like, I don't want you to think I'm a gravity skeptic. The point here is that it's not something we directly see empirically. And this causes problems when we get to more complicated cases where we don't have as much evidence to really support what is essentially like inductive reasoning. It's worked that way in the past, and therefore we expect it to continue to work that way in the future. And we've seen it, so many times, right? One reason to think this is because there are often arguments within academia over what counts as proven causation. Do not think of it as something that can be proven or disproven. Think of it as evidence on a spectrum running from strong evidence to weak evidence. Observational correlations, pretty weak. Well-designed experiments, very strong. Theoretically, the best thing we could do is go back in time and change just one thing to see how the results change. Or if you want to do like a physics multiverse, we'll open a portal into another world, change one thing in that world so that the only difference is the thing we change, and then we can see it. Obviously, we can't time travel. We can't open portals in the multiverse. Why talk about it? Because that's what we're trying to replicate with everything else we do. When we run experiments changing only one thing, we're trying to come as close as possible to that. When we do any sort of fancy econometrics or statistics, we're trying to come as close as possible to that ideal. There are a bunch of common pitfalls. I'm going to talk about two of them: selection bias and spurious correlations. This is just an XKCD I really like. The idea being that causality is the leading cause of death in this country because everything has some sort of cause here. Okay, so statistical modeling can help, but it's not a sure fix. So if you don't control for variables, then they're going to mask the real effect and mislead you. If you just look at the correlation between A and B and you don't pay any attention to C. If you control for too many variables, if you control for C through Z, you're going to make a bunch of choices. They're going to shape the data and you'll mislead yourself. And somewhat cynically, somewhere in the middle, there's the sweet spot where you do both and you're doubly wrong. Stats are farce, the truth is unknowable. See you next week. I'm kidding. I've always sort of wanted to end a video or class on that note, but stats aren't a farce, but they are really hard, and I think this points it out in a good way. Really recommend, if you're interested in this stuff, the Regression, Fire, and Dangerous Things blog post by Richard McKellarth. He's a textbook author. He's written a lot in this area. And so that's the sort of stuff I want us to keep in mind. I have some discussion questions for this week that I'm going to post in Canvas for us to discuss. Look forward to talking with all of you. Thanks. Bye.